Michael Carter had spent years building his fortune far away from home. When he finally returned, he expected to find his father waiting at the family house. Instead, he found HOA guards standing in the driveway. Michael immediately noticed that his father looked frightened through the front window. Before he could reach the porch, Eleanor Whitmore stepped forward with a black HOA folder. She told him his father was being removed from the property for violating community rules. Michael asked Eleanor why his father was being forced out of his own home. She claimed Robert had violated several HOA regulations and refused to cooperate. Michael looked at the guards and calmly asked whether they had any legal order allowing them to remove him. Eleanor said the HOA had already issued a removal notice. Michael asked to see the notice and read every page carefully. The document listed violations involving Robert's belongings, but none of them explained why guards were physically removing him. Robert quietly told Michael that the guards had arrived that morning and ordered him outside. He said he had tried to explain that the house belonged to Michael now. Eleanor immediately interrupted and told Robert to stop making excuses. Michael asked Eleanor to identify the exact HOA rule Robert had violated. She listed several minor complaints about the appearance of the property. Michael looked around at the expensive neighborhood and realized something about the story did not add up. Michael stepped toward his father and told him nobody was taking him anywhere. One HOA guard moved forward and warned Michael not to interfere. Michael stopped, looked directly at him, and calmly asked who had hired them. The guard said he was following instructions from the HOA president. Michael turned toward Eleanor and asked whether she had authorized the removal herself. Eleanor proudly said she had, and told Michael he had until sunset to cooperate. Michael smiled slightly and asked Eleanor one final question. "Do you know who actually owns this house?" Eleanor replied that ownership did not matter because the HOA controlled the neighborhood. Michael reached into his vehicle and pulled out a sealed legal document. He told Eleanor the house had just been transferred into his name along with several surrounding properties. Then he quietly said, "You should have checked the county records before touching my father." Eleanor laughed and said a deed did not make Michael immune from HOA rules. Michael opened the county transfer record and showed her the official ownership date. Her smile disappeared when she realized the transfer had been completed weeks earlier. Michael then revealed that he had purchased the property from his father to protect it from exactly this kind of dispute. Robert looked at his son with quiet relief. Eleanor insisted that the HOA would still enforce its rules. Michael asked Eleanor to produce a recorded document showing that his property was subject to the HOA. She searched through her folder, but could only find neighborhood notices and internal HOA paperwork. Michael calmly pointed out that none of those documents established ownership or authority. One HOA guard admitted that he had never seen a court order authorizing the removal. Michael immediately told him that his father was staying exactly where he was. The guard stepped back and refused to continue the confrontation. Eleanor pulled out her phone and threatened to call the police. Michael told her she was free to do so. He said he would simply provide the officers with a deed, transfer records, and video from the security cameras. A patrol vehicle arrived several minutes later. Eleanor immediately told the officer that Michael was interfering with an HOA enforcement action. Michael handed the officer the county ownership documents without saying a word. The officer carefully reviewed the documents and asked Eleanor whether she had any court order. She admitted she did not. The officer then told everyone that a private HOA dispute did not automatically give guards authority to remove a homeowner. The officer asked Robert whether he wanted to leave the property. Robert firmly shook his head and said he wanted to stay in his own home with his son. Michael placed a reassuring hand on his father's shoulder. The officer instructed the HOA guards to leave the property unless they had a lawful reason to remain. Eleanor protested, but the guards began walking back toward their vehicle. Michael watched quietly as the people who had tried to remove his father finally backed away. Before leaving, Eleanor warned Michael that she would make sure the HOA board heard about everything that happened. Michael looked at her and said the board was exactly who he wanted to meet. Then his attorney arrived with a thick legal file, and Michael finally revealed that the house was only the beginning.